On this digital media clip, we're going to look at the triggers, naturally occurring states of mind that put people at risk every day. Has there ever been a time when you've been driving down the motorway and looked up and realised you're just about to pass your junction? How does such a phenomenally powerful piece of kit like the mind allow you to drive a motor vehicle at 70 miles an hour down the motorway and be completely unaware of where you are? At that moment in time, you are so good at driving the car, you no longer need your conscious mind to do it. You've drifted off to a special place. You're away with the fairies and you're driving in autopilot. Autopilot is a naturally occurring state of mind that psychologists like to call alpha state or alpha sleep, and it describes the process of the conscious mind looking inwards at the subconscious mind. And when our conscious mind looks inwards, our awareness of risk fades. We stop seeing things below the knee or above the eye. People step down holes, trip over toolboxes, and bang their heads on things they knew were there. 10 minutes in every hour is about the time most people do alpha, but if they have a sick loved one at home, financial worries, or they're concerned about something, they may even spend most of the time away with the fairies, literally thinking internal thoughts and not even being aware of their surroundings. But do we ever create a culture where it's okay to stick our hand up and say, my head's not in the game? I don't think we do. If we consider 80% of workplace accidents as slips, trips and falls, alpha helps us start to understand how come people fall down holes and trip over things they knew were there. So we've considered alpha for the operator, for the driver, for the person walking around the site. But what about the person who has to observe the work? The person who watches the digger, who watches out for trains, the lookout? What happens to their thoughts when they're doing such a mundane task? And that's often why they're the person that gets run over or caught by the object or caught by the machinery, because their head is in a completely different place after an hour of such a mundane task. So because we do alpha and we don't see hazards below the knee or above the eye, this creates a zone in the middle, which we call the trigger zone. You'll notice if you've ever been woke up by the trigger zone, because suddenly you'll take an evasive action. You'll swerve away from that thing that was sticking out at waist height. You'll suddenly be woken up by the brake lights in front of you. That's the trigger zone saying, wake up, you're going to have an accident. Most people now walk around carrying a mobile phone. If they're looking down at their phone, their conscious mind is totally focused on the inside world of the phone, and the outside world of the hazards gets completely missed. They are totally unaware of the risks around them. So let's consider now what happens when we put somebody on an activity which is perceived to be very high risk. They use their conscious mind to focus very keenly on what might kill them or hurt them badly. They'll do this for 45 minutes to an hour or so, and they will deny themselves any alpha sleep at all. So consider what happens when they step out of the trench or step away from the job and start walking towards the van. They automatically switch into alpha mode and walk totally unaware of the risks around them. And most safety guys will tell you our accidents that are slips, trips and falls don't happen in the workplace, they happen to and from the workplace because they have built up an alpha debt. The next one of our triggers is habits. Human beings are creatures of habit, and 99.7% of everything we do every day is habitual. And that brings us a really interesting challenge, because we write new procedures, we change new ways of working, and we never consider the amount of time it takes to create the new habits and break the old ones. Now, a simple habit can take around 21 days to create. A more complex activity might take around 168 days to create the habits. But we never consider this when we change ways of working, the tools, the equipment, or worse, the machinery. Take an experienced plant operator, and we change the machine. For the next 3 weeks, he becomes a gawky driver. He is learning new habits and worse, trying to unlearn the old ones. and for a certain period of time there is always a likelihood he will revert to type, use the wrong habit in the new machine, and swing the bucket when he was supposed to go forwards. So habits in their own right can create some significant unsafe behaviours. Now, how do we sell people new and improved habits? For far too long, we've probably been preaching safety from a negative point of view, telling people what's going to go wrong if they don't do as they're told. And if we look at how advertisers sell us habits, they do it using fun, repetition, fancy jingles, multiple media, but most importantly of all, simple reminders. Something else to be aware of, I guess, is who sees our real habits. When the safety guy or the auditor or the manager appears on site, we only show them the behaviours we want them to see. It's our mates, it's our colleagues, it's the other operators on site that see the things that I do every day that are unsafe. And we need to create a culture where we give each other a nudge and we thank each other for reminding us to stay safe. The next one of our triggers that creates unsafe behaviours is the fact that human beings are wired to save time and energy. We're only on this planet for so long, and we don't want to waste time and energy doing anything the hard way or the long way. The interesting thing about time versus risk is our ability to blame everybody else for the judgments we make. We'll say it's the managers, the leaders, the client, they put us under pressure to get the job done quick. But the reality is, every single person on the planet likes to find the easy way to do things. So when we're trying to decide whether we should go back to the van and get our gloves before we do that task, there's a little voice inside our head just says, crack on, you'll be okay. Human beings are wired to take shortcuts. How many of those shortcuts are actually a better way of doing the task? But we're not brave enough to challenge the systems and procedures, so we pretend to do it the right way when we're being watched, but we revert to type when there's nobody looking. If we create a more open and honest culture where feedback is readily accepted, maybe we can learn from some of these shortcuts and make our processes and procedures more people-proof and slicker and faster too. So the last one of our triggers that creates unsafe behaviours is personal risk perception. Human beings don't see themselves having accidents. Consistently bombard them with information that bad stuff only happens to other people. This creates a mindset which, whilst very positive, means people don't see themselves having accidents. All have inbuilt Superman pants. A great example of this is, what would you rather be, the driver or the passenger? Most people will answer the driver, because when they're in charge, it'll be okay. It's almost as if they recognise that the hazards are the same when they drive or their friend drives. But when they're in charge, the probability of the accident being realised is 0. When their friend's in charge, the probability of the accident is a 1. That means we see the risk when other people are in charge, but we don't see the risk when we're in charge. And this presents us with a final challenge for our triggers. Other people will see me doing things they think are unsafe, even though I think I'm perfectly safe. And this brings us back nicely to giving me a nudge. If you see me doing something daft that you think's unsafe, please speak up and I'll say thanks for the reminder, because I may not see that it's unsafe at all. To truly understand the power of the 4 triggers, you need to go on and listen to the complacency trap, because when you add them all together, they truly help us understand why human beings do the daft things they do.